there you are. I'm just finishing off a doodle. I'll be with you in a minute. Well, I don't know about you, but I really love doodling, whether I'm on the phone or thinking up ideas. I'm usually picking up a pen and I start scribbling, and it's amazing what doodles can turn out to be. That started off as a squiggle and ended up as a sort of jack-in-a-box. Well, a few months ago there was a man called Napier Dunn who decided that he was going to arrange a doodle competition in one of the large shopping complexes in Taikoo Shing. And so he gathered together a lot of local talent and tried to tap some of their doodling ideas. And here he is showing some of the young people how to do their doodles. Over somebody's shoulder at the moment in the competition. Your name is?
Jane Castro.
Jane. Hello, Jane. Now, which is the shape that you started with?
I started with a henry.
This one, this dark shape. I see. So how did you decide what you were going to do?
I just looked at it and I thought it looked like a Henry Moore sculpture.
A Henry Moore sculpture, so that's what it's going to be, a Henry Moore sculpture. What else have you got to do on it now?
Some people and some cars.
And then it's finished?
Yes.
All right, we'll let you get on with your work then. I won't disturb you anymore. Each age group and each child had 15 minutes to complete their picture. The idea being to look at the doodle and try and imagine what you could see in it. Well, everyone worked extremely hard, scribbling away, and there were some fabulous results, as you can see. At the end of the competition, Mr. Dunn collected all of the pictures together and then went away and chose the prize winners. And here's a prize winner having his photograph taken with Mr. Dunn. He'd seen a flower in that squiggle that he'd been given. And another prize winner. And she'd seen a beautiful dove in the squiggle that she'd been given. And there she is in her winning photograph. And there's somebody there being given their prize. Well, all of those lovely doodles were done in black and white, but if you look around you, around the world, you'll see lots of beautiful bright colours. Did you know that if you were a cat or a dog, you would only see the world as a black and white, almost like a television set. Now take this picture for example. When we look at it, we can see it's full of bright colours, but a dog or a cat looking at it would only see it in black and white. It's a little bit boring, isn't it? Well, those of us who are lucky enough to have the ability of sight are able to see all the different colours of the spectrum. Now, what do I mean by spectrum? Well, if you were to look, say, at the light that's coming from a light bulb or light that's coming from sunshine, you would see it as a very bright white light. But if you were to split up that white light, it would go into 7 colours, and those 7 colours are called the spectrum. Now, the 7 colours of the spectrum are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. Well, I'm sure you've all seen spectrums in the sky. In fact, they're commonly known as rainbows, and here's a rather lovely rainbow. A rainbow is made by sunlight shining on water droplets. The rays of sunlight are bent by the water droplets, so the 7 colours can be seen, like in this waterfall. Well, colours of light are made up of 3 colours. They are red, green and blue, and they are the primary colours of light, very important too. Here we can see the primary colours of light mixed together, and they can make any other colour. Well, why don't you get hold of some different coloured cellophane and see what different colours look like if you look through the cellophane. I've got here green, red and blue, which are the colours of light. So let's try first to colour green. If you put it in front of your face and have a look and see what different colours look like. What colours does this look like with green in front? Let's try red. See how we look with red in front. Now have a look at the colours of the set and see what they look like with red in front of them. And finally, let's try blue. See what everything looks like in blue. It goes rather sort of moody and calm looking. I wonder what happens if we mix a couple of colours. Let's do red and blue. Mix those 2 together. We've got a sort of purple colour now. So you can see you can have quite a lot of good fun mixing these around. In fact, if you've got all the different colours together, you would get white if you've got all the colours of the spectrum. Well, the primary colours of paint are completely different. The primary colours of paint are red, yellow and blue. Now, red, yellow and blue paint can be mixed together to make most other colours of paint. Well, later on, an artist will be demonstrating to you how to mix all the various colours. But first, let's have a look at your attempts at painting in today's gallery. And the first picture in today's gallery is of a Swizzle Street house. All the pictures today are from our logo competition, and that's by Monihisa Animuna, who's age 5. And Swizzle Street written up there in a lovely logo. That's by Natalie Timsey. And a Swizzle Street plane. That's by Christopher Zills. This is a rather interesting one. It's like a Swizzle Street letter with the address on. And that's by Chloe Oakshett. And here we have a Swizzle Street bear logo on top of a flower. And that's by Karina Ong. And a Swizzle Street road sign. That's a good one. That's by Christopher Smith. Lovely Swizzle Street ATV sunshine. He looks a bit cross-eyed there. That's by Mark Kiernan, who's aged 11. And some beautiful Swizzle Street ballerinas. And that's by Justine Lamb, aged 6½, who was on our show a few weeks ago. My guest today is Ros Forrestal and also Gavin, who's come as her helper. We've been with Ros a few times doing artwork, so Ros, what have we got to do today?
Well, we're going to do some nice, fresh, summery things here. Blobbing. It's quite easy. It's a bit of, I'll do one first and then Gavin can do one.
What have you got in here? Is that just
We've got a bit of water here and a nice big fat paintbrush. Just wet the paper. And then take a straw and some ink.
That's just drawing ink in there, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is just, and get a little ink in there, and just blob it on. And you see what happens. It looks like a swimming pool or something. And then if we had, take a different colour, we'll take yellow. See what happens. Blob it on.
So the colours also mix as well,
mix
don't
together, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But if there's a nice thing that Gavin could do here, to do with doodles as well, Gavin. If you take a white crayon, I'll give you this, you can do this one. If you take this white crayon and do some doodles on the paper, and then you do like I did, wet it, and then blob some ink on and see what happens.
Is that a wax crayon?
That's just a plain wax white crayon.
Have a go.
Just do some little doodles. That's the way.
That's all.
Round and round. You can't see them, and then when the ink comes, you should be able to see them.
That's good actually, isn't it? Because you can't. It's a big surprise when it actually comes out.
Yeah, invisible.
Can we see what it looks like then with some colours on?
Here we are. Look, Gavin, wipe that over with the water.
Great.
Spread it on. That's the way. I'll blob some paint on. Ink, I mean. This is ink. Okay, ready? Let's see. Now.
Oh, that's fabulous. So the ink doesn't go where the wax has been.
That's right. Oh, I think so. Sometimes it's a bit thick, but we can just
move it.
Pick it up and you move it around.
Gorgeous.
There you are. Look, you see where the crayon is? It's a bit hard to see at this point. If we try and move it around a bit there. Now you can see where the crayon is and the ink doesn't go on it.
That's great.
And it gives you a little line. Okay.
It's really lovely. Shall I move that one to dry?
Move that one over. And there's the same technique we can use with paint. If we wet the paper, do that again, Gavin, with a big brush.
Your water brush. That's a good brush, isn't it?
Yes, they're very. You can buy them in, hardware shops and things like that. Used for just ordinary house painting, emulsion.
Okay.
And then if we take little blobs of, we can do. Let's just do some paint here. Look, just blob, and it makes little flowers sometimes.
That's absolutely brilliant. Wonderful. Well, I think we're going to look forward later to see some more of Rosie's artwork in You Can Make It. But first, I wonder how it was that painting actually began.
See how they...
The earliest paintings that we know about were done about 30,000 years ago in the Stone Age. They were put on walls deep inside caves. Well, we can only guess at why people began to paint pictures, but it seems likely that they did them for magical or religious reasons. Well, in ancient Egypt, art was closely linked with religion. The Egyptians believed that when people died, they went to live in another world. And in order for this to happen, the dead were preserved as a mummy. Egyptian painters showed things in a way that seems strange to us. In pictures of humans, the heads, the arms and the legs were shown from the side, but the body and the eyes are seen from the front position. Well, in this picture, the ducks and fish and trees are all shown from the side, and the things they painted weren't very real looking. But all the parts of the picture that they thought the most important are shown more clearly than you would be able to see them in real life. In Italy, in the early 15th century, people began to take an interest in art and learning. Artists began to ask questions and experiment instead of just copying old styles. And painters began to paint more realistically. And this time was called the rebirth of art, or the Renaissance. At this time in Northern Europe, portrait painting was becoming very popular. Just look at all the details put into this picture. The little red slippers and the folds of the dress and the reflections in the mirror in the background. Well, it's incredible how much painting styles have changed over the years. And in part 2, I'll be telling you a little bit more about the history of art. But for now, let's have a quick break. I'll see you in a minute.
Stay with us because we'll be right back in a minute with your favourite cartoon character, Danger Mouse, in part 2 of Swizzle Street. Get ready now for part 2 of Swizzle Street and the answer to last week's tricky teaser in Would You Believe It?
Last week on Would You Believe It, I asked you if a story was true. Well, now Gavin is going to try and work out for me whether the story is true or not. And the story went, if you remember, a man walked into a museum with a coin. And he said written on this coin was 500 BC. Now, is that true or is that false?
True.
True. I tell you what, it's false. Shall I tell you why? It's false because how are the people to know that it was 500 years BC? Because BC means before Christ. So how do people then know it's going to be 500 years BC and stamp it on the coin? Well, I wonder how many of you I managed to catch out. Well, this week's Would You Believe It is all about looking at things very carefully and have a look at these two lines and see which ones you think are the longest. There you are, there's the two lines. Now, which one do you think is the longest line?
I don't know.
You don't know which one? All right. Why don't you measure them and see which one's the longest line? So put the knot on one end. How long's that one?
12 centimetres.
12 centimetres, all right. Now how about the other one?
12 centimetres.
12 centimetres as well. So they're both exactly the same length. Now that's because the arrows, because they're pointing different ways, it creates an illusion and makes you think that the lines are longer. So you just have to look very carefully. Why don't you have a look at this one and see if you can work out whether these lines are straight or whether these lines are curved. I'll give you the answer to that one next week. Well, I wonder how many of you will recognise this next very, very famous painting. It's the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Can you see how it's been painted in soft colours, as if it's slightly blurred? It really seems to make her skin glow and the shadows on her face are very, very soft. Well, Leonardo da Vinci had many interests besides painting. He studied nature in a way that no one had done before. And here he is in his room, studying plants and insects that he's collected. Well, Michelangelo was another famous painter. His best-known painting is the fresco on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. He did it all by himself and had to work on scaffolding. It must have been a real headache. In the 19th century, art became a lot more romantic, and showing emotions and feelings through art was the most important thing. Take this picture. It's full of excitement and energy, but isn't really very accurate. Now, this painting of a train by Turner to make people feel as if they were actually out in the wind and rain with the artist creates a lovely feeling. Well, nowadays, many styles of painting are in fashion, like this strange abstract one, or this surreal picture, which has real objects in it, but they're all in the wrong places. And of course, we now have the cartoon, which is not real-life drawing. It's just real objects with certain things exaggerated to make them more exciting. Well, I think I know of a very good example of a cartoon. Do you know what it is?
Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse! Well, this week's story is all about a very colourful red dog called Clifford, and Clifford's adventures with his grouchy neighbours. Do you like dogs? Well, I'm Emily Elizabeth, and my dog is named Clifford. And I'd say most people like him. But there are some people who don't like him. One time we had neighbours who hated Clifford. But Clifford wanted to make friends with them. Every day he went across the street to visit them, and the neighbours acted as if he wasn't there. Well, like all dogs, Clifford isn't perfect. He scratches himself, and sometimes his fur would blow into the neighbour's yard. And they didn't like that at all, especially when they were having their tea. Sometimes as well, Clifford just tends to snore at night. But even a little snoring bothered them. However, Clifford liked them, and he really liked to listen to the woman singing. But once he sang along, and he sang just a little bit too loudly. When he sat by the fence, the man complained that Clifford blocked the sun from his plants. And one day, Clifford noticed that the tree blocked the sun too, so he took care of the tree for the man. But the people were not pleased. Clifford had to put the tree back. After that, I told Clifford to stay away from the neighbours. We saw them at the shopping complex one day, but we didn't go near them. Then, Clifford saw their shopping cart roll away while they opened their car. He tried desperately to stop the cart. What a mess. Poor old Clifford. Poor old people. I told Clifford never, never, ever go near the neighbours again. So Clifford stayed on his side of the street, and he would sit and watch the man feed the birds. Clifford really wished the man liked him as much as he liked the birds. One day, Clifford saw some workmen at the neighbour's house, They were putting in new water pipes, so Clifford went over to watch. Well, Clifford could see into the neighbour's yard. Uh-oh, the birds were in trouble. Clifford knew he couldn't go into the neighbour's yard, so he picked up a water pipe, took a deep breath, and vacuumed the cat right out of the yard. It was a very, very surprised cat. Well, the neighbours thanked Clifford for saving the birds. He's not such a bad dog after all, they said. Good old Clifford. Well, we're back with Ros Forrestal again for some more interesting ideas in this week's You Can Make It. What is it now? What are we doing now?
Well, we're going to do some leaf rubbings. It's very easy. You need to find a good leaf with a big vein that really sticks out. Put it underneath a piece of paper with the vein side up.
Yeah.
And try and arrange a few leaves.
You just got those from your garden, did you?
Yeah, just went out, picked a few of these. Try and pick leaves with nice shapes, which when they're rubbed down, hang on.
To look good. So you don't want torn ones, you actually want a good shape.
Yeah, you want a nice shape. Okay, and then you just take the crayon with the paper torn off and just rub along on the paper. And the line and the shape of the leaf comes out.
Do you want to press very hard? Or
no, not really. Just remember to sort of rub it away from you.
Yeah.
And as the leaf will move a little bit, and you can even move it yourself a little bit, maybe, and use another colour.
So Gavin's doing it on black. Is this just to get another effect of the colours?
If you use black paper, you can use pale colours like white and pale green and things like that. And if you use white paper, you can use dark colours.
Is that difficult?
Much better effect.
Is it difficult?
It's not really coming out, is it there, Gavin? Let's just see this. Look at these lovely.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it, with the pink there coming through?
Then you can add pink to it. You can make cards with these, they're quite nice with cards. And also you can add paint to them. Let's just move this down there a bit. There you are. It's a bright colours.
So how do you add paint to them?
Right, and then we can just take a little paintbrush. And then let's see, yellow.
Right. And that's just watercolour paint, is it?
This is powder paint. But as you see, because it's wax crayon, it resists the area where you put paint on. The wax crayon pushes it away, yes, and you can just sort of paint round it. And it has a nice effect because the crayon colour stays there.
That's great. Make sure though when you are doing painting that you have newspaper and you protect yourself, like Gavin's got his apron on. So don't just start painting anywhere, will you?
And don't forget the newspaper and don't forget to tidy up after you.
No, sure. That's great. Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time, but this has been absolutely gorgeous. That's come out really nicely, hasn't it? If you want to find out more about different things to do, if you'd like to get in touch with Ros through me, Ros is doing art classes at the moment, then you can write to me. And this is the address to write to. My name is Tracy King. Write to Swizzle Street, ATV, room 430, 81 Broadcast Drive, Kowloon. And we'll be back next week with some more ideas of things to do. So it's goodbye from all of us. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Coming up next on ATV, the Flintstones, followed by Crazy Cat.